Have you ever felt like your faith is running on empty? Well, I know I have, and tonight we're going to share. Come on, let's go. Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Not Safe for Sunday podcast. I'm Josh, and Ken has a very special message for you.
Yes, I do. If you like this podcast and if it speaks to you, if it resonates with you, we want you to do a few things. We want you to first like this episode. We want you to make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell. And then we definitely want you to comment if there's anything that, hit you today, and we want you to share. So actually, that's 4 things. So 4 things, okay? 4 things.
We got a few things for you.
Welcome into the Not Safe for Sunday podcast.
Oh, Ken had to take that one for me because he threw me that softball last week, and I absolutely whipped.
You did.
I absolutely
put it right on the tee for you.
Struck out. It was one of them big old plastic wiffle ball bats too. The giant barrel ones.
The big barrel. Remember the Mark McGuire bat where he then the commercial he squeezed his hand to it, so it was molded to his hand.
Yeah.
Jake knows what I'm talking about.
I had it.
Welcome back into the podcast, friend of the podcast,
Thank you guys.
the bench boy.
Thank you.
The utility man, the lighting specialist. That's Big Jake.
Jake.
What's up, Jake?
Nothing much.
Catman.
And
Catman do.
Catman. And you see that distinguished gentleman next to him.
Oh yeah.
With that,
I think
everybody salute.
I think we need to salute.
Everybody salute.
Salute the captain.
Captain Digital.
Captain Digital's in the building. What's up, Captain?
Nothing much. How's it going?
It's going, man. I'm loving the hat.
Thank you.
I'm loving the hat.
My best purchase of the year so far.
I would say
not the boat.
Not the boat. It's the hat. It's the hat.
Not the boat. I was gonna say there was something that led up to this purchase, but I agree.
Honestly, if we got rid of the boat, I'm still a captain. So
I love it, dude. I love it. I didn't introduce Daniel. Daniel, what's up, man?
I'm a man who needs no introduction.
Yeah.
This is true.
the dope and tope. The dope and
Dope and the tope.
Dope and the tope.
He's kind of got more. I don't
What
know.
is it today?
What is that?
He's the man in the mauve.
Yes.
He's the mauve avenger.
The suave and the mob.
The
dude.
suave and the
Suave and the mob.
Nice.
I just want to point out that, I'm always caring for Ken, so his love and peace sign looks a little bit better today because Joe Schmo over there didn't take off the white film on the back. That's why he couldn't even see what the sign said.
Maybe it had film. Maybe it didn't.
That's it.
It's beautiful. That's all we know.
Brought out Trump.
I didn't expect the Trump. I did not expect the Trump.
I played 4D chess like Trump. Maybe we pulled back on the tariffs because it was a disaster. Maybe I meant to the whole time.
It was all part of the plan.
I just point out that I play a
Science
fair
beautiful.
game. I play a fair game.
I appreciate that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because what you don't understand is my mind games is what led you to do that.
Oh, okay, Jedi Master.
Jedi mind trick.
Yeah. You will notice the film.
You're going to have to take that film off on your own.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Just
take care of the film.
Always me cleaning up after Ken's messes.
Oh, my goodness.
We all need one.
You're the chore boy?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I call him Scribe.
He does. Scribe.
Scribe.
Snap.
Take notes.
Take notes for me.
Johnny, we gotta look over some notes, kid. Speaking of notes, we gotta look over them because we gotta figure out what we're naming the boat. So, before we get into where the votes are at, let's hit me with some of the highlights. Well, for the listeners, for those who did not participate, we released a video. We wanted you, the listeners, to be able to vote on what Johnny should name his new boat. Because for those of you that don't know, hence the captain hat, Johnny has purchased himself a little dinghy.
Little dingy.
Little dinghy.
Little dingy.
And
That's a great name, dude. Why didn't that one make it?
All right, scratch that. Little
right,
dingy.
we're gonna
Little Dingy.
We're gonna
That's
redo
such a good one. Man.
we got to redo this all over again. But so we put it out to the listeners for you guys to hit us with some unique names for Johnny's new boat, and I I think we have a winner, but
We have a winner from all like the social media platforms. I think Naughty Boy.
Naughty Boy.
Naughty Boy is number one in the lead with 7 likes, I believe.
So is it? It's official. You're gonna name
Officially, I'm ending it here before any other comments get any more likes.
it. Well, because
Timestamp it.
What was second place?
I don't even want to talk about
Well,
it.
what-
Second
what-
place was-
well, I'm gonna talk about it. You know, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
There was a big push. There was a
That was all liberal propaganda. That wasn't real.
there was a real big push from
Come
a
on.
fellow family member of yours, aka your sister,
Oh yeah.
and she wanted and was getting a lot of support.
A lot of traction.
Yeah,
Lot of
she
traction.
got some friends involved for sure.
Hannah, what was it? Hannah, the best sister ever.
Something like that.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Some crazy name.
That's what it was.
So Naughty Boy lost won to
By one vote.
By
By
one vote.
One
yeah.
vote.
YouTube coming in clutch over whoever that
it
guy was.
Facebook. It was Facebook.
That was Facebook?
Yeah, you got one extra vote for Naughty Boy on Facebook, but Hannah, the best sister ever, was a close second.
That was very
that
close.
was that was
Very
close
close
call.
What were some of your other favorites that were on?
That was
there?
my favorite. I was rooting for that one from like
For Naughty
the
Boy.
beginning. Yeah.
Naughty boy.
What else? Any
Motorboater, I like that one.
Motorboater
too.
was good. Yeah. I liked New Boat Goofing.
Yeah. New Boat Goofing.
I was a new boat goofing guy. I'm trying to think of what else there was. I saw a lot of Johnny Be Good.
Yeah, a lot of like the play on words, but
Yeah, I liked that
Naughty
was
Boy.
fun. Naughty Boy
Naughty
it
Boy.
is.
Naughty Boy.
We're gonna have to share out a picture once you.
Yeah, I'll get the letters.
Yeah, you
like,
gotta put them
pressed
decals
there
on
and
there.
Letter it up.
I get to ride on the boat on. I think it was the second voyage
Oh, yeah.
this past week. So
Oh,
yeah, it's a smooth ride. It's a smooth ride.
smooth ride.
Caught a few fish. It was a good time.
You guys take it out to the lake.
We took it out to Lake Street in Acushnet, front of the pod.
Broad Lake Street. Sponsor the pod. Sponsor the pod.
Wow. We're
And,
getting real creative.
And yeah, I caught a few fish and we had a great time.
Nice,
We fished.
nice.
We fished into the night.
Nice.
Yeah,
You try to
Caught a few fish.
bass. You know,
Little
but
tiny ones.
little bass for
Little
sure.
small
I'm not
bass.
going to tell fish stories. They were little bass, but
nice. How'd you ride, Captain?
It was good. A lot better than I
Yeah.
thought. I thought it'd be hard with 2 people, like a little rocky, but we're able to stand up, so
Yeah.
yeah.
it's better than I thought.
Oh, nice.
But how was backing it in?
Back it in's another story. I gotta do it in the dark of night when no one else can see me.
Yeah. You got to practice in a Walmart parking lot somewhere
Yeah,
in the back.
Because what do
It's,
what do
it's
you-
a little scary when everybody's on the boat ramp watching, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
You
seeing
got
if
the
this guy's a
intimidation.
pro or not.
You got a bunch of 40-year-old dads like
Oh,
just
yeah.
standing around like, what's this guy doing? You know?
Listen,
him.
man, it's the same as like the first time you went golfing, right? Everybody's watching. You feel like
The
there's a
pressure's
lot of
on. I think
pressure.
it's a different type of pressure. You know?
Well, the issue is you got to remember those same people you watch shank into the trees all the time. Those same people on that boat dock probably doing the same thing you're doing. So
yeah,
Or they been there before?
yeah,
yeah at least they look like they've been there before, and I didn't. So
while you guys were doing that, I was enjoying my stay in Oklahoma. I think, and let me tell you, that was rough.
Yeah,
rough.
it looked
That
like
was
it was rough.
It was rough.
Really,
as
really
I
suffering.
As I perused your social media, you know, I saw you playing basketball in the official USPS basketball arena.
Yeah, that was good times. Good
I
times.
saw you meeting Derek Fisher.
I met Derek Fisher,
former
yeah.
NBA
Yeah.
star.
Yep.
What else did you do? You went to an OKC Thunder game.
Yeah, that's
right?
that's where I met Derek Fisher.
Yeah, that was the one that broke the camel's back for me. That was a straw that broke the camel's back. That's when I emailed Elon.
You're like, that's it. This is what we're
I said,
spending our
that's
money.
it. This is where my money's
Where's,
going.
where's his
Forget
5
it.
things this week?
This thing's a junket.
First of all, that was my own personal dollars that went into
Really?
that. Oh yeah, they didn't pay. They don't pay for me to do that.
To get there?
Oh, they paid for me to get there.
Oh, yeah.
But I paid to go
I
to
was
the
gonna
game.
say.
I had to pay to go to the game, and yeah, that me and I went with another guy. I ended up meeting there at the training. Yeah, we went to the Oklahoma City Thunder game, and after the game, we're just hanging around waiting for the Uber across the street at the hotel, and like I see these guys walk over to somebody, and they have like Lakers jerseys, and I'm like, who's signing those Lakers jerseys right now? And I see the back of his head. I'm like, is that Derek Fisher in Oklahoma? And then I walk across the street, and I'm like, Oh snap! That is Derek Fisher.
So as you're talking, I'm thinking. I believe Derek Fisher is a Christian, and so what an opportunity. And I'm not saying it's in the past, and I wouldn't have thought of it too because I'd be in awe of meeting an NBA player. But maybe we can tag Derek Fisher, in this episode. Perhaps he could be a friend of the pod.
Well, there it is, Derek.
The challenge is out.
It was nice to meet you, first of all. Fantastic to meet you. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your night.
Weren't you saying before this you hated him?
As a Celtics fan, yes, I was not a big Lakers fan, but he did. He let the entire world know exactly how many seconds can be on a clock for you to win a game in the playoffs.
Is that when they made that rule, like kind of official, like you can only get a shot off with this much time?
Point 0.08.
Yeah.
0.08 was the time that he had left on the clock, and he knocked down that shot.
I believe that was against the San Antonio Spurs.
The Spurs, yeah.
I was a Lakers fan back in the day, and so I followed that, and that was one of the greatest playoff shots.
Probably
of all time.
I think it's up there with MJ, the MJ elbow jumper, but Derek Fisher 0.08. That's everybody knows that shot. So,
not everybody.
Anybody that's anybody. So, anyways, that was a long way for me to say, Derek, we'd love for you to follow
a friend of the pod.
Be a friend of the pod.
Welcome on. Welcome on board.
Welcome aboard.
Not safe for Sunday.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you for being you. Don't know who you are, but God bless.
Look him up. Look him up. We'll show you the highlights after.
Maybe you can go on John's boat.
I'm sure he's been on. I'm sure he's been on better boats.
Maybe
his legs would be hanging off the side.
Oh my goodness! But the one thing I did take away from this trip is I will never fly American Airlines again.
Oh,
it's not friend of the pod. They don't not sponsor the pod.
Oh man, what happened, dude?
Dude, first of all, these seats are tiny. Okay, when's the last time you guys flied? When's the last time you flew?
I fly a couple times a year.
Yeah,
my last
not that long
5
ago.
trips were JetBlue.
Yeah, so I gotta go JetBlue.
I have nothing to compare it to right now.
I gotta go JetBlue from now on. But tiny seats. I actually sat next to this one guy on my first flight that completely raw dogged the entire flight. Like
no TV,
no TV,
no phone, no headphones, none of that.
Didn't nap, no book, nothing.
Can I just say that's the dumbest trend and concept ever? Like I don't know.
I don't know why that was a trend like recently.
I don't understand what the point of it is. Just to say that you can be bored on an airplane for 3 hours or whatever.
Know.
I don't understand.
This guy was older, so I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just like I'm just here for a nice flight.
What seat did you have?
The window.
Window, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, at least you had the window.
So this is my next question, right? Who is in control of the window if you have the window seat?
You are.
The window.
So the window falls in your row. You're in control of that window.
Yeah.
100%.
So I'm in this flight, right? Daniel's giving me the look.
Oh, I don't know.
And I'm enjoying my view out the window. When all of a sudden a hand comes back.
No freaking way, dude.
It slides
the
down
audacity.
my window.
No way. From another aisle or like across you?
No, like behind you, right?
No, in front of me. In front of me. Hand comes back.
in front of you.
Slides down the window. And I'm like...
Excuse me.
And I'm like in shock.
That's
I'm like,
wild.
did that just happen? And I look at this guy and I'm like...
Is that Derek Fisher?
You're not going to believe it. It was Chandler Parsons. Jake's dying because that's as an obscure NBA name as you can say.
Yeah, I didn't catch that one myself.
Oh man, but no, I have no idea who this guy was, but and then I just like kind of respected him.
That's soft.
I'm like, you know what? That took some real nuts.
You should have opened his window. Just do a swapsies.
I was just like, you know what? You had to have some real balls to reach back here and put down that window.
Yeah, he just dropped them on you. You let him do it.
Dropped them right up. I guess.
Man.
You gotta learn when you're gonna learn when you're older, Johnny. You pick your battles.
How is he gonna close your window?
I'm gonna have to. I'm inclined to agree. I would have went right back up with it the second his hand moves.
No, I bring peace and love.
Yes.
You don't bring love and peace.
Yes.
Nope, you lost my vote. Oh man, but yeah. So I lost my window privilege.
Wow. Now, did you keep it closed the rest of the
I just
flight?
kept it closed, dude.
The whole flight?
I'm not going back and forth with this guy. We just got going. Like
how long were you into the flight?
we got 2.5 hours left to go here. I'm not going back and forth for 2.5 hours.
Now, was it like a morning flight, night flight? Like, what was the context of the flight?
This was like 11 o'clock
In the day.
AM?
in the day. Yeah, a.m.
Yeah, windows got to be open. I mean,
Well, I think it depends. Like, when the flight starts, windows open. But if I'm gonna try to nap or watch something, I don't mind closing it myself. But
Yeah.
I think I'd take issue with somebody else closing it for me. But
wild.
Well, this is the other thing. I had the entire row to myself, so
oh, beautiful.
yeah, I don't know. And I wasn't on the window seat on that one. I was on the aisle. So now does that change it?
Oh, so you weren't sitting
I
in the
wasn't
window
sitting
seat.
at the window.
Oh,
I had the row to
okay.
All
myself.
right, yeah, okay.
So
See,
the
I didn't-
context changes.
Yeah, that does change a
Okay.
little bit.
Because I'm two seats away from the window at this point.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. So then that's if you were sitting in the window seat and the hand just goes brushes your face to shut the window.
Yeah, I mean, if that's going into your personal space
No,
to do it.
I was
know.
2 seats removed
All
from the
All
window.
right. Then,
that's,
yeah.
that's better. That makes more
So
sense.
So I'm not entitled to the window at that point.
No.
To you, I say love and peace. Then I respect you more now.
That's all I ever wanted. That's all I ever wanted was your respect. But yeah, okay. So now we got the ground. The ground rules are there. All right.
Yeah.
You're not entitled to the window unless you're sitting at the window.
Just because you own the aisle doesn't mean you own the window. You got to be at the window to own the window.
All right. This is good airplane talk.
Yeah,
Good airplane talk.
I think so. Etiquette.
Oh man. All right. Good. That's good to know. Good to know. All right. Well, tonight's episode.
Segue.
Clean segue.
Tonight, Daniel had hit us with a few ideas, and this was one of the ideas that I think stuck out to all of us. I think we all had chimed in that this was something that we really liked, and it's the concept of kind of what do you do when you're in a season where your faith doesn't feel like it's being rewarded, basically, where your faith runs dry or you feel like your prayers are going unanswered. And that's the basic
Yeah.
idea.
Faith in the funk. Navigating like a dry season. Your faith. We've all been there. Where no matter if you've been a Christian for a year or 40 years, I think we've all gone through seasons where we've kind of ridden the high and like real season of encounter and sensing God's presence with us, and then other seasons where we feel like the Israelites wandering the desert and we're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So yeah, like navigating how to. And I even had a recent conversation with a young adult who brought this to me and was like, hey, like I'm in a real kind of dry season. Like I haven't really felt God. I don't really hear from Him. I've been praying. I've been in my Word. I'm trying to seek Him, but I just feel so dry. Like why do I feel that way? And so I just thought I think we've all been there at some point. So I thought it would be kind of an applicable conversation we could bring.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, and I think something that we need to make sure we right off the top, like this is a common experience. This isn't something
Totally.
that if it's happening to you, it doesn't mean that you're any less faithful than anybody else.
Yeah.
It could be a season where maybe you're not walking in line with what God has set up for you, but it's definitely something that I myself have experienced, and I'm sure that everybody that's here has experienced at some point. So I guess to start it off, when we talk about something like this, and either one of you guys can explain, but what would you say some of the symptoms of this period of time look like?
Well, I can just talk about mine because I actually remember mine very clearly, my first experience like that. When I accepted Christ, it was pretty night and day, as far as what my life, how I started living after accepting Christ. And with that, and I spoke about this on a Sunday morning a couple weeks ago, and it's definitely like a high, there's that elation, there's that instant contrast of like dark and light, and you're just clinging to Jesus and clinging to the light, and so with that comes a lot of emotion, like good emotion, feelings of elation and joy and a peace like you've never felt before. And I can remember, and I don't remember how long it was, if it was like a few months in or 6 months in, but I can remember going to who was like my spiritual leader at the time and like just straight up being like, hey, like I don't feel it anymore, just like that. And, like, what do you mean? I said, I was feeling like just so high, so joyful, so full all the time. And lately I'm not. Like, I just don't feel it anymore. And she was just really real. I was one of the youth leaders. It was husband and wife. And she was like, it's not a feeling. It's so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
What you've done in getting this new life. But even in this new life, you're going to have seasons that you don't feel like they're great, but it doesn't mean that anything happened.
Right.
It's just walking out life. And we can't always be up here. We can't live up here in these highs, Eventually it does kind of level out, but that doesn't mean anything bad happened. It doesn't mean that what happened wasn't real. It's just, the seasons of life, And so that was like my first really kind of like experience with that ordeal. But it left a profound impact on me. And I'm so glad that she was real about it and not just kind of give me some spiritual fluff or, some, like make-believe story, and then tell me it was all going to be okay. She's like, no, this is now life. You're going to be walking with God for life, and walking that out, you're going to have highs and lows and good seasons and not so good. And so it was really important that she was real with me like that, because it really set the tone, and gave me an honest viewpoint.
I think that's a great starting point, because this is probably something that everybody can relate to, is that experience that you have when you first are saved, when you first accept Jesus Christ into your life, when you first get baptized. The high that you're on in that time is unexplainable.
Yeah.
It is absolutely unexplainable. It's like you are so on fire. I remember when it happened to me, all I wanted to do, for like 3 weeks, all I did was carry my Bible with me everywhere. Everywhere I went, it didn't matter where I was, that Bible was in my hand, and I was walking with it, because I was like, I'm going to share this with everybody. I can't wait.
Yep.
This is incredible. And then comes that realization that not every day is going to feel like that. Some days are going to be bad days. Some days you're not going to feel worthy. Some days you're going to make mistakes. And especially at the beginning, with the lack of maturity, I would say, that would plummet me into like, God's not answering me anymore. What have I done wrong? Like, oh my God, now I'm in fear. Now I'm living in fear instead of being in this high of like, oh man, this is incredible. It's the best feeling I've ever had. Now I'm living in fear. And I think for a lot of people, especially in the beginning, that's probably a very realistic experience.
Yeah, and I think if you have a kind of a staunch coming to Christ moment, right, where you're an unbeliever and then you just are radically transformed, I think you ride that high really quick. I think if you're kind of like brought up in the church, that looks different.
Yeah,
because
sure.
It's all you've ever known, and so it kind of can be like a longer, more drawn out process of this becoming a reality for you. It's not necessarily that it just clicked moment where you just like are experience that high. Being in church, you might have had a couple of encounters, and I can only speak for myself. You might have had a couple encounters where, God felt more real, or times where you felt a little bit more distant. But navigating it as a kid who grew up in church, I think the process, it looks different because it's all you've ever known. And so you kind of have to walk it out for yourself and navigate it and figure out like what this really is. And then, you can experience those highs and they can come, but I'm not sure that, like, especially for those who have kind of grown up in church, that experience even really holds identically true for them. I think if you're radically saved, it for sure can be that experience.
So then I guess the question for me would be like, what are some of the reasons then, or what are some of the things that people might be feeling in a time where it feels like their faith is dry up, where they're not on that, let's say, that course that God has for them.
I think believers and unbelievers very much alike, all kind of have that moment where they're like, is God real? You know what I mean? I think we've all kind of gotten to that point in our journey, and some of us have decided and have had an encounter where we're like, yeah, God is real, and he's undeniably real to me. And then some have just never gotten to that point yet. And so they were never able to get out of that dry season because it's all they've known. For believers, I think once you experience God's power and God's presence in a real tangible way, where something happened and you're transformed, or like behaviors that were once desirable to you are no longer desirable, where conviction comes upon you. When you experience that and it feels really real, and then those feelings kind of just start to fade, it becomes a little scary. Like, okay, what's going on? Like, why am I not feeling this way? Like, and if that's all you've known is the high, when you start to come off of that high as a believer, it can be kind of scary. Like, is this what faith is going to be like for the rest of my life? Like, is this kind of what it looks like? And I've had a lot of those conversations, especially with the young adults, because that's mostly my experience a lot, is, they've navigated their faith very recently, and they've coming off this high, and they're like, all right, well, now kind of reality's hitting me in the face here. And honestly, I feel like it's like, what do I do? Where do I turn? Like, it's almost like a little bit of a discouragement, not hopelessness per se, but definitely a discouragement sets in, that it's just like, why is this happening,
Yeah, I can remember just as an early younger believer and having seasons like that, and I think I shared on a Sunday some time ago, just like really like just kind of feeling like just kind of like a loneliness. You know what I mean? And maybe part of it is just some of the seasons of life. So when I was at UMass and I had accepted Christ, and it was a bunch of us that kind of accepted Christ at the same time. So it was this great community that could support one another and like kind of breathe life into one another. And then when summertime comes, I go back home, to where my mom lived, where I was living in the summer. I have none of that. So I think for me, it was kind of like just a different season, and that season brought about loneliness, and that loneliness kind of just turned into like despondence, and a little bit of frustration. It's like, hey, like I don't feel happy, like what the heck? For the past 6 months, that's all I felt was happiness and joy, and it just seemed like it was there, like it or not. And now I feel lonely. I'm feeling sad, and like I haven't felt these feelings in a long time, and so it's like, am I going backwards? Has God left me? And so, that was like kind of just crying out moments for me, crying out to God, like, God, what happened? And like really like, that's when I really got turned on to the Psalms, you know what I mean? Because you hear that in David sometimes, that anxiety or that crying out of, where are you, God? I mean, how long are you going to forget me? How long are you going to feel so far away? How long, is it going to feel like everybody's against me? And so I think in some ways, God allows this strategically that we may press in more. Right. You know what I mean? It's like the baby that starts out, a baby just really needs that bottle, you know what I mean? But as they grow, they need a little bit more. And then as they grow a little bit more, and so I think as newborn babes in the faith, it's like everything's just beautiful and wonderful and great. And there's not a lot of issues. And then as a child grows, they need more, but then there's also the potential for more complications. And so I think God allows these things in stages so that we may cry out for him more, depend on him more.
So how can you, for somebody that is going through this, and what a lot of what it sounds like is there's an emotion that's tied into this. There's a feeling. Sure. So this how can we help somebody navigate this faith basically beyond feelings? And this basically obedience is what you're talking about, is if God's putting you in this season to kind of help navigate you through, it's probably you're going to pick up some quality along the way. I've always believed this. Sure. In the tough times, that's where God gives you some strength to get 100%. Through. You know what I mean? 100%. All kinds of different qualities to help you at some point down the road in your life. So what kind of advice would you give to somebody that is dealing with this period where the emotion, they're feeling lonely, they're feeling tested, they're feeling depressed for whatever reason? How can what's the advice that you can give somebody that's trying to be obedient but is feeling like they're going unheard?
Well, I think there's a certain reality that kind of has to set in, and what I'm thinking of as you're talking is like, just think about newlyweds. You know what I mean? Newlyweds, it's all love all the time. You know what I mean? The spouse can do each spouse can do nothing wrong. We're just so in love, and it's that freshness and that everything is brand new. Eventually, though, you get to like it levels out. And then you have to just do life. Right. And you can't just live on these emotions of honeymoon phase and this new fresh love and the bubble gum and the bubbles popping. And it's like eventually it levels out and you just have to do life. And so I think understanding that this is not, just as your brand new conversion, if that's the case, or this newfound love or this renewed love with God, that's just a season, but out of what's supposed to be a lifetime. Yeah. And so just like any relationship, we just have to put in the work of communication, of doing what needs to be done, for a relationship to flourish and to be successful, to build, together, to grow closer together. So we do those things with God through the Bible and praying and fellowship and praise and worship, just as, we do in our marriage, with spending time together and talking, communicating, going out on dates. So, understanding that it really is a lifetime. And just because a high starts to dissipate does not dictate the condition of your relationship.
What a huge impact that has made in my life, of just understanding that this is a season, and with God, I'm going to get through it. I'm not going to be in this season of depression or whatever it is my entire life, if I choose not to be, because we all know the people that choose to remain in every day is a rainy day, every day is the worst day ever,
victim mentality,
you know what I mean? And it's those people, my heart breaks, because I couldn't imagine going every day believing that everything bad's going to happen today. It only happens to me. It's the Eeyore mode. Yeah. Oh, bother. You know what I mean? Everything bad happens to me. Of course it's raining. Of course this happens. Nothing good ever happens. But if you can reframe that mindset to believe that, all right, I can get through this. It's only whatever. It's only this season. It's only this week is going to be a tough week. Tomorrow's going to be a better day. If you have to take it out, this month's going to be tough, but I can get through it. This year is going to be a rough year, but I can get through it. If you change your mentality to just that time, a shorter time frame of suffering, you're going to get out on the other side, and you're going to be at least have some hope that things can get better.
I think you can look at, like you were saying, David. David is he's very honest throughout the Psalms. I mean, how long, O Lord, echoing kind of what you were saying. I mean, you can read a lot of Psalms, and they start off pretty miserable. Yeah. David's bringing, something that I admire about David is, he brings his laments to the Lord. He brings those sorrows, those tough times. He brings the difficulties, and we get to reap the benefits of that, because he wrote them down in the forms of songs and hymns and stuff. So we get to benefit from that he shared those. So he lamented to the Lord and sought the Lord and shared those things earnestly. He didn't run the opposite way or kind of like cower and say, it is what it is. So I find that he lamented and he kept turning to God. And this comes back to a lot of the conversations we've had about just like discipline and obedience, right? I mean, it goes back to the finance episode. We just talked about, discipline. Self-discipline means like I have to work at this, right? Hard work. I got to put work in. I got to stay consistent, stay obedient. Faith isn't, it's not a feeling, but it's a call to obedience. Right. God calls us to obey. And in that, we know that there are promises that he bestows upon us that he will fulfill. because he is who he is. He doesn't change. We're the ones who change. And so if we are delaying our obedience, if we're falling out of line with what he's called us to do, well, we can't be shocked when we're not experiencing his presence. Not to say that every time we experience his presence, I mean, you could be doing everything right, and sometimes you just got to walk out a dry season.
For sure.
Right.
You know, sometimes because you can't just be in a season where, like, your whole life can't just be, you know, a torrential downpour of presence, of
Right.
God's presence, you know,
Right.
because even that at some point will become numb. Like, you know, everything in life is cyclical, right? It's like, we've talked about all these things that we've wanted, right? The chicken coops and the drones, and we've had these talks over
Vision
these
board,
episodes,
the vision
right?
board.
You know, we've had all these things that we want and we desire, and like it's everything that we need, and then we get it, and then it's like a couple of weeks of entertainment, and then that wanes. So
great analogy.
you know, this is natural in our physical lives mirror our spiritual lives in so many ways. We're kind of blind to it a lot of times because we think it's more complex than it really is, and it's like, no, this is how life is worked out, you know, and God's created us and designed us this way. We have to continue to seek him as he's called us to do, you know, keep asking, keep seeking, keep knocking. What does he say? The door will be opened, right? And it's accordance to his will, especially if we're seeking things in line with his will, not selfishly, but in God receiving the glory and his kingdom being first. That's where we will see him.
Just the fact that he says keep seeking, keep knocking,
he reiterates it.
implies that there is going to be a time where the door is not going to open right away.
Yeah.
You know, and you're not going to find what you're looking for. And as Daniel's saying, as talking, I think there's a great cause and effect here, because this is a top of the list question that I get as a pastor, you know, or not necessarily a question, but a concern. I feel dry. I feel like, you know, and so oftentimes I'll say, like, well, you know, are you praying and reading? And like almost always it's like no, right? And I get that. I mean, there's a place that maybe you live there for a little bit, just you can't even bring yourself to do that, and I get that. But I also tell people to understand that that's the source.
Right.
That's the life source.
Right.
So the longer you stay detached, and then John 15, which I talked about a few Sundays ago, abide in me. You know, the branch must abide in the vine if it's going to produce life, if it's going to produce fruit. So the longer you're detached from the source, the more dry. You know, the drier it's going to be, the prolonged the season might be. Not to say that just reading and praying, okay, that's it, microwave and we're good. No, but there should be some kind of question of cause and effect, and that, okay, like, I need to get back, even if I have to force myself, even if I have to push myself, even if I don't feel like it, because here we go. Now it's not feelings anymore, positive and negative. It wasn't all feelings when I first came to Christ and I felt that elation. It's not all just feelings now because you don't feel it. So you got to push through, connect to the life source.
I think a big key is maturity in that, because what I have experienced or what I have seen is people will go straight to, I'm being punished. God is punishing me.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? I did something wrong. God is punishing me. So instead of seeking the source, they're going the other way and running away and saying, "Oh, he's abandoned me now because I did this."
Yeah.
And that turns into a whole spiral instead of doing what you're saying and realizing, no, you got to get back in the word. You got to get to prayer, because he's probably trying to show you something. He's probably opening something. There's probably something for you waiting on the other side of this season that you're in. He probably has something for you, but he's waiting for you to obey. He's waiting for you to act. But if you're taking it and now you're hiding from him, you're saying, you know what, he's abandoned me. I'm done. I'm not going to be getting this word. Whatever. I can't even figure out what I did wrong, and he's not talking to me.
There are countless verses to encourage too for this. You know, I mean, the Bible's the most relatable book on the planet. You know, there are dudes who are suicidal in there. There are people that made terrible mistakes and paid the consequence for that, paid the price. And I just mean like the natural consequence of mistake, not necessarily God's judgment. There are people that went through long and prolonged depressive seasons. But then there's also like these verses, you know, like Don't let this book of the law, like the word, depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night. Be careful to do according to all that is written in it. Then you will have good success. Then you'll be prosperous. You'll be Psalm 1. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly. His delight is in the law of the Lord, and he meditates on it day and night. Psalm 1, right? So there's definitely, there's so much relatability, but there's also so much encouragement that we find in the Word. You know what I mean? So even if I have to push myself to go do it, I got to go do it because it's probably going to be what gets me back on my feet.
It's the thing where you have to practice it. If you practice it, it's going to get you out of it. And it's just from my experience, and it took a lot of times of saying, I might not have, I can't tangibly see and say, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. If I go and open my word, I'm going to feel better. Mm-hmm. I have to physically do it. So, and it's from hearing people like you speak or you, Daniel, speak, and give that guidance of, hey, if you wake up in the middle of the night, me and Jake, we talk about this all the time. You wake up in the middle of the night, you don't know why you're feeling stressed, pray. Mm-hmm. Get in the word.
That's good.
Right?
Yep.
Share it, Jake.
No. I'm just
Yep. Nope.
I just want to say, for me in my walk, I think, you're going to have seasons of ups and downs, but I think if you rest on people of God, you don't fall astray. But I think there's seasons where you're going to feel like you're alone. There's going to be seasons where you are isolated. And if you fall back into the mindset that you once had in your previous life before being a Christian, you're going to be tempted to do a lot of things that you were doing in your past life, and it's going to, bring you down. So just be close to people of God. It's one foot in front of the other, and that's kind of the mentality that I've had in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
that's a good word.
That's a good point, and that was a point I was just about to hop in and make. So you beat me to it, but I think it's a lot of times when people come to Christ, they have that high moment, or even if you've been a believer for a while and you experience a high, it's like, okay, your behaviors start to transform. The things that you desire that are contrary to God's will, those desires start to fade. But then as you start to come out of the high, it's like, okay, I'm creeping. Old behaviors are creeping back in. Old desires are creeping back in. Old sin habits are creeping it back in. And so we start to fall into temptation. We start to fall into sin. And, it becomes kind of defeating. Like, oh, come on, God. Like, why am I doing this, number one? And then when we feel like God's not there, or God's, we're experiencing a season of dryness where we can view it as kind of like a punishment. So the guilt starts to set in, and it's like, oh, God's mad at me. God doesn't love me anymore because I did this or because I did that. I slept with my girlfriend, or I got drunk again, or I did that. Whatever it is, these things that we struggle with and we battle with that are very human, and they can mess with us. And then if you're not in healthy community, if you're not leaning on other people, like Jake, you were just saying, you're not leaning on other people and bringing this to them and saying, like, I just help me navigate this, in a mature way. Your mind and the enemy is going to use mind tricks against you. The guilt and all that stuff is going to start to spiral to a point where now you've been completely isolated, you're completely cornered, and then you make a bolt for it because you can't even handle the guilt, the shame, and before you know it, you're back to the very beginning where you were. And we talk emotionally healthy. I think emotionally healthy, this is one of the first wall believers hit. Yeah. That they have to navigate is coming out of the high and what to do with it. And there's a lot of people who look at that wall and it's like, there's
too big.
No way I'm getting around that, and they turn away. And that's where it's on mature believers to get around new believers, put your arm around them, start discipling them, start talking to them about these very real things that they're going to encounter. Not to say, when a person's on a high, hey, just wait till that comes down. Like, that's going to suck for you. Don't discourage them, but just have real, open, honest conversation with a concern and a care for them to teach them, like, these moments are great, but how can we establish consistency over time? How can we continue running this race and continue working at this and continue? And again, you could plug away. It doesn't mean it will all be hunky-dory the whole time.
Yeah.
But how can we build spiritual disciplines, consistency? You know, Paul always likens our faith to like a race and an athlete running and training. And those things require discipline and hard work.
Yeah, I was about to say the discipline thing, because the scripture I'm thinking of is where, Paul is telling us that we have to crucify our flesh how often? Daily, right? So there's a discipline there that I don't believe anybody necessarily is going to start out with,
Right.
but it's something that is developed over time, and it's probably developed through some of these dry seasons.
Yeah.
So while we think these dry seasons are just, silly, monotonous, aren't producing anything, it's probably producing something, because I'm gaining endurance. I'm learning how to endure, because I do need, this is a walk that to be successful requires that discipline. So crucifixion daily of the flesh, super important, because as Daniel said, the high is going to dissipate, and I can't ride the high, and certainly not emotions forever. I do have to walk it out, and it has to become more practical as well. And if I find myself creeping back into old habits and I'm not being disciplined about crucifying the flesh daily, that whole snowball that he illustrated will happen.
I'll tell you something, though. The community aspect that you just hit on, oh, man, huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And just my experience, but I see the people that are in these seasons where they don't feel like they're progressing, they don't feel like they're getting closer to God, and then they get into a group setting and somebody's calling them out on it, or somebody's mentoring them in some way, the impact that has, and you can't take it away. It is huge. And I'll go back to something else that you said. There's a vulnerability to be open and vulnerable to a brother or sister or a group. The reward that I think, or the eye-opening that happens, the blessing that God pours out in that time is huge. When you're vulnerable and you're opening up and confessing, I mean, the Bible says it. If you confess to your brothers, right? When that happens, from my experience, from what I've seen, there's been real, like, palpable breakthrough that's happening.
Absolutely.
Like, and it's huge. People are breaking those chains and coming out on the other side on fire. They might have been in that season that you're talking about, and by the time they get out, they're a whole completely different person.
Yeah, and that's one point I wanted to bring up too. And you always want to be sensitive, because you don't want to blanket it, but dry seasons also can be due to sin issue. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And the thing about this is that it's very subtle. Because if it's something hidden and something that like is just one of those, and I kind of think about porn when I think about this, you know what I mean? It's like the hidden,
one of those quiet ones,
every so often reoccurring thing that I think I have under control until I don't, and then it's back under control, and then it's not. And what happens is that because we have the Holy Spirit, if we're not dealing with our sin issue, and again, nobody's perfect. We always put that, disclaimer. But the fact of the matter is that if I'm like, as you just said, like confessing, open, looking for accountability, and these things persist, there's just this natural agitation that happens within you, because the Holy Spirit, it grieves the Holy Spirit when we sin, and it's subtle, and the Holy Spirit is a comforter and speaks the truth, and it's not like it doesn't get us and shake us like that, but there's an agitation that happens. And so sometimes my dry season is a result of just like this uneasiness within me because of the agitation, because the two things within me are not agreeing. And you can see this in the Bible. You can see it when David, really his big screw up, is the Bathsheba and Uriah incident. And in Psalm 51, it's his repentance psalm for that episode. And he says, "Restore to me the joy of my salvation," as he prays. It's through repentance and really dealing with these things, becoming more open, that I can get the joy again. And I give my sin to God, even though I should have known better, and I've been doing this for a long time. And I'll go back to Psalm 1. Again, blessed or happy, content is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor sits in the seat of the sinner, nor stands in the path of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, who gives fruit in his season, and whose leaf does not wither. So serious cause and effect here. If I have an undealt sin issue, if it doesn't happen tomorrow. It might happen the next day. I'm going to enter into this dry season that is just due to not abiding in Christ and slowly drifting and this agitation that happens. And the answer is repent. Come back to God. Come back to Jesus.
Got to have an honest conversation with him. He already
100%.
knows.
Yeah.
He knows. He's just waiting. He's waiting for you to open up and say, all right, I'm giving this to you. I can't do this. I keep going back to the well of whatever it is. If it's porn, we go back to the porn again. I keep going back to this well. I can't do it on my own. I need you. But I think, once again, going back to the talk of shame, we feel shame, and then we feel like God doesn't want to hear it. But we got to let him hear it. Like, we got to let him know and open up and be. We can be most vulnerable to him. I don't have to sit and experience the embarrassment of having to tell you, Ken or Daniel. If I'm by myself and I can open up and be vulnerable to God, that's my time and opportunity to do it and be able to, like you said, repent of that and truly repent. Right? You can't do it halfway. You got to
keep it
all
real.
the way.
Got to keep it real.
I think sin. I think sin is one of those things. Coming out of a high season is another reason of experiencing the dry and kind of coming out of that whoa moment.
Right.
Something else I think is so practical and so simple is I made a little bit of a point before that our physical lives and spiritual lives run in tandem with one another, and so I think a lot of times when we're not in a healthy rhythm ourselves, getting enough sleep, having enough to eat, doing the right things, if we're not stewarding our bodies right, like mentally we're going to be all over the place, and spiritually that's going to be reflected in the exhaustion that we experience and the disconnected, like the lack of joy and kind of all of those things. Our physical lives are very much run in tandem. I think about Elijah when he defeated the prophets of Baal, right? And God, after that, he was even suicidal. He's like, Lord, please, I've had enough. Take this life of mine away. And God, what does he do? He clothes him. He feeds him, puts him down for a nap like a baby, and says, and then he's fine. And he comes back and he's restored and he's strengthened and he's filled. And so we can't neglect also the fact that even physically, we need to be in a rhythm. Like you're not getting enough sleep. You're up all night, and then you're trying to get into a spiritual rhythm where you're hearing from God. Like you can't even hear your wife talk to you. You can't even hear your kids talk to you. You think you're going to hear God talk to you in a season where you're just not even stewarding kind of like your physical body well. So I think there's so many things that run in tandem with how we can experience sort of a season where it's really dry, or a season where we are really feeling God in a real and intangible way.
Yeah, I think there's some joy, or there's just this, I don't know, there's this specialness to appreciating the everyday and finding God in the everyday. You know what I mean? Because if you're only seeking him, if you're only having faith on a Sunday, you're going to feel dry because if that's when you're filling your cup and all week you're pouring it out because you're not refilling, you're not going back to the word like you said before, Ken, you're not praying, you're not in community, well, you're going to feel like you're in this constant state of drought because you're not being refilled. So are you seeking him on a daily basis? Are you finding joy in his creation? Are you finding joy in the laughter of a friend or companionship with somebody else? Are you finding joy in his blueprint in your life? And if you're not, I would say start doing that. Start seeking him in the daily things, the things that we consider the mundane, waking up, going to work, doing all those things. Yeah. If you start seeking and looking for him, you'll find him. Yeah. You know what I mean? You'll find his glory, and you'll find his love, and you'll find joy in those small things.
I recall.
Go for it. You got.
No, I recall a conversation I had with a believer a little while back, and they were a new believer, came to Christ, and just staunch transformation. I mean, it was so real. You could just see it all over their face, and then I remember shortly after them coming to Christ and experiencing a high, there was a moment where they had a deep low, even a near-death experience, and like, God, why is this happening to me? Like, what is the purpose of this? And then coming out of that and really seeing the transformation of like, whoa, this person was like, wow, holy mackerel, they were riding that high, the joy of the Lord I've never seen so tangible, and then to kind of like this disassociated, disconnected, and kind of watching that unfold, and then never really walking away, just being there, but kind of like just being kind of like numb and a little bit just it hit them. That low really hit them hard.
Yeah.
And then I had a conversation with them after that, maybe like 4 months after or so. And something they said really stuck out to me. And he said, well, I really had like that come to Jesus moment was so real. Like I felt God's presence, his spirit. I like immediately the things I desired, like sinfully, I had no desire for them. The things that brought me joy before Christ, like I didn't even want to drink, I didn't want to smoke, I didn't want to do any of that. It was instant. And they said that low really showed me an appreciation for just the normal. Just I could appreciate the middle now because of how low I hit. I don't need to be here, but like I love being here because I know what it was like to be low. Point. And so to speak to your point, it's like it's just even learning to appreciate being here, with really God, being consistent, being,
For those listeners, Daniel's hands are right in the middle.
Oh,
it's not too high. It's not too low.
It's Goldilocks style, right in the middle. It's just right.
It's the just right porridge.
But just being consistent, just walking with God in the every single day, and not living for these extremes. The highs, and I mean, no one lives for the lows, but not looking for those, or really being disappointed when a low comes. It's just.
Yeah, it's like any sports analogy. You know what I mean? The 6 days a week, of training, it isn't sexy. It's hard work and it's consistency.
Right.
And most people only see the last day, the performance. To give it a sports analogy, like a Sunday football.
Right.
Nobody sees the blood, the sweat, the tears, the consistency,
right.
the eating right, the watching your diet. They only see the performance, the glory. And I think sometimes we give ourselves like a false impression of what this Christian walk is like, and
for sure.
We just want the glory. And even more so with like YouTube and TikTok and, 30-second sound bites and these huge moments of, great church services and dynamic preachings and people falling to the floor. But the consistency is where it's at. It's not sexy, but it works. It works. And it's the same thing like with the sports. You know what I mean? The consistency is what allows there to be the glory moment. But you can't live there. Nobody can live there. We live here. Putting my hand in the middle again.
Right in the middle. So as for the listeners, the Mama Bear's chair was too hard, but Ken's hand just right
in the middle, just right.
Right in the middle. But it's a great point because you got to practice. We talk. It's a great analogy. I love good sports talk, Ken. But you got to practice. We talking about practice.
Yeah.
Okay. And Sunday's the performance, right? Sunday's the game. Sunday is. It shouldn't be, but it seems like that's when the performances are happening, and then the rest of the week it's just dragging. Show up. Show up and play. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to just show up and play. I coached college basketball. Trust me, those guys just want to show up and play. But you got to practice. You got to practice, and you need a coach. You know what I mean? And we have the coach. We have the playbook.
That's right.
We have the coach. We have to practice every single day to be the best in our field, in our craft, in our game, whatever it is. And without that key component, you're going to get injured. You're going to lose, all those things. So that's a great analogy. I love it, Ken. I love when you bring sports up.
Hey, I aim to please.
Ken just gave a thumbs up for those listening.
So as we kind of come into a close here, so let's what are so Ken, Daniel, I am somebody that's going through this time. I feel like God has abandoned me. I'm a believer, okay? I feel that God has abandoned me in this time. I can't put my finger on it. Give me some practical steps that I can take to get out of this funk.
I think it just starts, the consistency is key, but I think it also starts with like early morning. You know what I mean? If you allow too much time to go by in the morning and like familiar thoughts put you into familiar funks, it's going to be hard to get out of that cycle. And so if you can't bring yourself to pray first thing, if you can't bring yourself to read first thing, you can YouTube your favorite worship song. So let that be the first thing that touches your ears in the morning.
Shameless plug for the Not Safe for Sunday podcast. You can also pop that on. You can
can
find us on social media.
Nothing better than starting with.
Absolutely. You know, like and like on my days like where like I'm not as busy or engaged, you know what I mean? And maybe I'm just home and I'm just like helping with home chores. That's what I try to do, man.
Yeah.
I just put on worship and just like, you know, just I want to kind of like not crawl through the mundane. I'd like to kind of like strut a little bit through the mundane, you know what I mean? So
Nice horse trot.
a nice little trot, you know. So I think it starts early because how often, you know, when you're in a funk, you know, your bed is your retreat. That's the safe place. I just want to be under the covers. I just want to sleep because that's the only place where I don't have to think about my
Dude,
problems.
that hit, yep.
So
I know that's mine. Daniel
Yo,
got his hands up.
I'm almost in
For the
tongues over
listeners,
here, dude.
Daniel's hand way up.
100%.
I'm up here with him because that what you're talking about, that is the safe spot. You crawl into bed and you just put that
that's
cover
my
around
that's
you.
my refuge
Yeah.
because when I'm asleep I don't have to think about my issues, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So but we can't live there obviously. So when I do get up before the thoughts, like I said, the familiar thoughts that lead to the familiar funk sets in, do something different, you know, shock yourself a little bit. So whether it be worship, if you can read, man. I mean, David, the way he talks about the word, and he wrote so much of it, but the way he talks about it, I think it's Psalm 119, your word is sweeter than the honey from the honeycomb. You know what I mean? It is just honey on my lips. He says it's a lamp to my feet, a light to my path. He says it's the way that a man can keep his way pure. I mean, so there's so much there that even if you can give yourself a psalm a morning, they're not long, a proverb a morning, whatever it is that just keeps you abiding, connected, just the lifeline until this season, you know, passes, I'd say start early. Start early because once you're 15, 30, 45 minutes into your day, you might be back into that familiar funk, and it's going to be that much harder.
Good word. Daniel, what do you got?
I thought about that because I'm like, when I thought about the episode, I think that people need a real tangible kind of some steps or something to follow.
I think so.
So some things that jumped out to me are just like stay in the rhythm even when it feels empty. Just stay at it. Stay consistent. Be honest with God, like David. You know, bring those concerns to God. Like, God, I don't feel you right now. I don't hear you. I don't even know if you're near, but I just know I need you. You know, I need you now more than ever before, and I do want your presence. Like, bring God into it, and then bring someone else into it as well. You know, so like we talked about community and, you know, mature believers. Go and seek out young believers. Don't be spiritually obese. Go and pour out into other young believers. Put your arm around them. Bring them close. Disciple them. Train
you went
them.
the other way.
Lead them.
You're saying go find somebody for it.
Don't wait. Don't wait to be sought because
okay.
not everyone's gonna go seek. Go and find. Go and find. The command from Jesus is to go and make disciples, not go and wait for disciples or stay and wait for disciples to show up at your feet.
Good
Go
point.
and make disciples.
Good
So
point.
go and make disciples. Stop chasing the emotion. Don't confuse like a spiritual high with spiritual health. The two are not the same. You know, the feelings and emotions, they're going to lead you astray.
That's a good point, Daniel.
So don't chase the spiritual high.
It's saving all the good stuff for the end.
I wanted my practicals.
Oh, man.
And the last point is just remember what God's done. You know, God,
Amen.
You're here at this moment. You have faith for a reason. You've had a God encounter, and really get serious about it. You know, I think in the Old Testament you can see that the Israelites built altars on their way out of Egypt. And in Joshua, it tells us that those memorials were to serve as a reminder to future generations of what God's done.
That's good.
So remember, write it down. I mean, I know my memory is I like a goldfish sometimes. So, I have a prayer request list, and I put prayer requests on there. And when I'm praying for them, I now have I'm a list guy, right? So I have my list that I'm praying for. And then when God answers that prayer, I get to check mark it. And then I get to go and look tangibly and see all the prayers God's answered. I get to go to that note. I get to go to that reminders app, and I get to see all the completed things that God has done in my life. It serves as a reminder. So when I'm in my dry season, I know, no, God answers prayers. This is a God who answers prayers. This is a God who's there when we need him. He's a God who, when I seek him, I will find him. It may not be in the moment, in the timeline that I want it, but he's there. He's there. I feel like I'm walking alone. Well, actually, I'm in the palm of his hands. He's carrying me. I'm not even walking. So why am I concerned? He is right there. So I think that those are some kind of practical things, like really be consistent, record your answered prayers, and look back on it to serve as reminders, just like the Israelites in the desert built the altars.
You came with the heat.
Mm-hmm.
You came with the heat here at the end. I don't think you left any meat on that bone for me.
Sorry, dude.
The one thing I will say is don't be afraid to shake it up. If you're in a season of spiritual dryness, and maybe you already do have a routine, a prayer routine, or you're doing a reading plan, it's time to shake it up.
Yeah.
Try something else. Join a small group. Start serving in some way.
Yeah, do something different.
Do something different. Just do something different, and maybe that's what it was. You know what I mean? God's going to guide you. He's going to get you to where you're supposed to be, but you got to maybe sometimes break out of this routine that you've set up for yourself. So that would be my practical advice.
And really seek the Lord. Don't go church hopping, because again, the high will only lead you church hopping, and you're only going to be seeking who's the next, who's the one who's got God's presence the most. Where is it? Where is it? Where can I really seek God's presence? So don't go chasing here, there, and everywhere. When God, God will lead you. I mean, I understand that there's times where God calls you out of a church, brings you somewhere else. He calls you to a different state, whatever it is. But don't go chasing God, because he never left. He's right there. Stay consistent.
And just going on your monument point, like even think back of your own life. The Israelites are famous for recounting like their history. When God did this, so almost recount your own history. Like remember when you used to cling so tightly to Jesus. Remember the cause and effect of that. Remember that. So go to church. Find Jesus. Cling to him. In word, in prayer, in people, in church. You know what I mean? Remember that. There's a cliche, but I think it's such a good one. Like your first love. Like remember what that's like. And seek it, chase after it.
It's good.
I think we got to remember too, the big thing I want everybody to walk away with too in this episode is that this season of spiritual dryness, it is exactly that. It is a season. It will pass. Okay.
Spring is coming.
Spring is right around the corner, and not only that, not only will it pass, but like I've said, I think you come out on the other side with knowledge, with maybe a different attribute that you haven't had before. I think you come out on the other side of these seasons with something else
100%.
that is needed in your life. So I want to share it. I want to put it out to the listeners. Share your experiences with us.
Drop it in the comments.
If you've experienced some spiritual dryness, if you felt distant from God, share your experience with us, because we've talked about it. This is a community. We're in it together. So share your experiences, and if you're listening, if you're watching us, put it on the comment section of the video, and really just go back and listen to some of the other conversations that we've had, because we hit on a lot of this stuff.
Oh yeah,
it's funny how this.
We have common threads. Throughout. I feel like all the podcasts.
Yeah, the thread continues throughout each episode. So go back and listen to some of the episodes we've had prior to this, because a lot of this all ties together. But any last words? Anything from the booth, Captain?
# Derek Fisher.
Everybody at Derek Fisher.
Yeah, at Derek.
So we can get him on.
We'll be looking for a pic on the Instagram of Naughty Boy
Yeah.
in action.
Yeah. Keep your eye.
I gotta go get those emblems, but they'll be on there soon.
Yeah.
All 6 of the boys will be on the boat
Yeah.
on the Naughty Boy.
Ahoy, Captain.
Ahoy.
We need champagne.
That's
Crack it on the side of the plastic. You have to really hit it hard.
Don't hit too hard. We need those sugar glasses.
So keep your eyes out for that. You can find us on social media at NSFS Podcast. Until next time.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Hashtag love and peace.
The Not Safe for Sunday podcast was recorded in the loft. You can find us on social media at NSFS Podcast. Audio editing by Spencer Barrowman. Video editing by John Walsh. If you'd like to join us for a Sunday service, you can find us at Conquerors for Christ Church, located at 972 Reed Road in North Dartmouth, Massachusetts.